Dr. Marcus Blackwood had everything a man could want. At 32 years old, he was the youngest chief surgeon at St. Mary's Hospital in the heart of the city. His hands could work miracles, saving lives that others had given up on. People respected him, colleagues admired him, and patients trusted him with their most precious possession, their lives. Marcus lived in a world of luxury that his father, William Blackwood, had built over decades. The Blackwood family owned the largest pharmaceutical company in the country. Their mansion sat on 50 acres of perfectly manicured gardens. Servants attended to every need. Crystal chandeliers hung in every room, and oil paintings worth millions decorated the walls. William Blackwood had big plans for his son. He wanted Marcus to leave medicine and take over the family business. Doctors help one patient at a time, William often said. But we could help millions and make billions. The old man had already chosen a wife for Marcus, Victoria Sterling, daughter of another wealthy family. Victoria was beautiful, educated, and came with a dowry that would merge two powerful empires. But Marcus loved being a doctor. He found purpose in healing people. Every life he saved filled him with joy that money could never buy. He had no interest in running a business or marrying someone he barely knew. This created tension between father and son that grew stronger each day. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday evening in October. Marcus was leaving the hospital after a difficult surgery when he heard crying coming from an alley beside the building. Most people would have walked past, but Marcus couldn't ignore someone in pain. He followed the sound and found a young woman sitting on the wet ground holding her knee. She had long black hair that was soaked from the rain. Her clothes were simple and worn but clean. When she looked up at him, Marcus saw the most beautiful brown eyes he had ever seen. They were filled with pain but also with a strength that surprised him. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, kneeling beside her. "I fell," she said in a soft voice. "I think I twisted my ankle. I was running to catch the bus and slipped on the wet pavement." Marcus gently examined her ankle. It was swollen but not broken. "I'm a doctor," he told her. "Let me help you inside where it's dry." The woman hesitated. "I don't have money for medical bills." "Don't worry about that," Marcus said. "Right now, let's just get you taken care of." He helped her to her feet and supported her as they walked into the hospital. In the emergency room, Marcus properly cleaned and bandaged her ankle. As he worked, they talked. Her name was Elena Rodriguez. She was 26 years old and worked as a waitress at a small restaurant downtown. She also took evening classes at the community college, studying to become a teacher. Elena had a way of speaking that drew Marcus in. She was intelligent and funny, but also humble. She asked about his work and listened with genuine interest as he explained different medical procedures. Most people in his social circle found his job boring or too serious to discuss, but Elena asked thoughtful questions and seemed to understand why he loved healing people. When Marcus finished treating her ankle, Elena insisted on paying something. She pulled out a small wallet and offered him $20, probably all the money she had. "Please," Marcus said, gently pushing the money away. "It was my pleasure to help." Elena smiled, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. "Thank you, Dr. Blackwood, you're very kind." As she prepared to leave, Marcus found himself not wanting her to go. "Elena," he called out, "would you like to have coffee sometime? I mean, when your ankle is better." She looked surprised. "Are you sure? I'm just a waitress." "You're not just anything," Marcus said firmly. "You're working hard to build a better life while helping others. That's admirable." Elena agreed to meet him for coffee the following Saturday. As Marcus watched her limp toward the exit, he felt something he had never experienced before. It wasn't just attraction. It was a deep connection to someone who understood what it meant to serve others. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Elena met regularly. Sometimes they had coffee, sometimes they walked in the park, and once Marcus took her to a small museum she had never been able to afford to visit. Elena showed him a side of the city he had never seen. She knew the best small restaurants, the quietest places to sit and talk, and the most beautiful spots to watch the sunset. Marcus found himself falling in love with Elena's spirit. She was optimistic despite having very little money. She worked 2 jobs but never complained. She shared her dreams of becoming a teacher and helping children from poor families get good educations. When Marcus told her about the pressure from his father to quit medicine, Elena encouraged him to follow his heart. "You save lives," she said one evening as they sat by a fountain in the city park. That's a gift not everyone has. Money comes and goes, but the good you do as a doctor lasts forever. Marcus had never met anyone who understood him so completely. People in his wealthy circle only cared about status and money. Elena cared about making a difference in the world. She made him want to be a better person. As their relationship grew deeper, Marcus knew he had to tell his father about Elena. He also knew William would not approve. The Blackwood family had never associated with common people, as his father called anyone who wasn't wealthy. But Marcus didn't care about social class anymore. He loved Elena for who she was, not what she owned. The confrontation Marcus had been dreading finally came when his father announced that he had scheduled an engagement party for Marcus and Victoria Sterling. "I'm not marrying Victoria," Marcus told his father firmly. William's face turned red with anger. "What do you mean you're not marrying her? This has been planned for months." "I'm in love with someone else," Marcus said. "Who?" William demanded. Marcus took a deep breath. "Her name is Elena Rodriguez. She's a waitress and a student. She's the most wonderful woman I've ever met." The silence that followed was deafening. William's face went from red to purple with rage. Marcus could see the storm coming, but he stood his ground. For the first time in his life, he was ready to fight his father for something he truly wanted. William Blackwood's reaction was even worse than Marcus had expected. The old man's face turned from purple to white as he processed what his son had just told him. For a moment, the study was completely silent except for the ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the corner. "A waitress?" William finally whispered, as if the word itself was poison. "You're going to throw away everything we've built for a waitress?" "I'm not throwing anything away," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm choosing to marry the woman I love," William exploded. He slammed his fist on his mahogany desk, sending papers flying. "Love? What do you know about love? Love doesn't pay bills or build empires. This girl is using you, Marcus. Can't you see that? She's probably after our money." "Elena doesn't even know how wealthy we are," Marcus said. "She thinks I'm just a regular doctor. She's never asked me for anything." "Of course she hasn't asked yet," William sneered. "That's how these people operate. They get their hooks in first. Then they start demanding things. Before you know it, she'll want jewelry, expensive clothes, a big house. Mark my words, son, she'll bleed us dry." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "Elena isn't like that. She's honest and hardworking. She's putting herself through school while working 2 jobs. She has more integrity than half the people in our social circle." "Integrity doesn't run companies or maintain family legacies," William shot back. "I've spent my entire life building this empire so you could inherit something meaningful. And you want to throw it all away for some nobody from the slums?" "She's not from the slums," Marcus said firmly. "And even if she was, it wouldn't matter to me." William's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Then you're a fool. I raised you better than this, Marcus. I gave you the best education, the finest opportunities. I thought you understood what it means to be a Blackwood." "Being a Blackwood doesn't mean I have to marry someone I don't love," Marcus replied. "It means you have responsibilities," William said. "To the family, to the business, to our reputation. This waitress girlfriend of yours doesn't fit into any of that." The argument continued for over an hour. William tried everything: threats, bribes, guilt, and manipulation. He offered to buy Marcus his own hospital if he would forget about Elena. He threatened to cut off Marcus's trust fund. He even suggested that Elena was probably seeing other men behind Marcus's back, but Marcus stood firm. Every attack on Elena only made him more determined to protect her and their relationship. He realized that his father would never understand what real love looked like because William had always valued money over everything else. "I'm going to marry Elena," Marcus declared finally, "with or without your blessing." William's face went cold. "If you marry this girl, you're no longer my son. I'll cut you off completely. No money, no inheritance, nothing. You'll be on your own." "Then I'll be on my own," Marcus said, surprising himself with how calm he felt. "You think you can live like a poor man?" William laughed bitterly. "You've never wanted for anything in your life. You don't know what it's like to struggle for rent money or worry about buying groceries. This infatuation will end the moment you realize what you've given up." Marcus looked around the luxurious study where they stood. The expensive furniture, the rare books, the original paintings, none of it meant anything to him anymore. "I'd rather be poor with Elena than rich without her." William's expression turned to disgust. "Then you're not the son I thought I raised. Get out of my house." Marcus left the mansion that night and never returned. He didn't take anything except the clothes he was wearing and his car. As he drove away from the only home he had ever known, he felt scared but also free. For the first time in his life, he was making his own choices. Elena was shocked when Marcus told her what had happened. She cried when she realized that his father had disowned him because of her. "Maybe we should wait," she said through her tears. "Maybe in time your father will change his mind." "He won't," Marcus said, holding her close. "And I don't want to wait. I love you, Elena. I want to spend my life with you, starting now." They were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Elena wore a simple white dress she had bought with her savings. Marcus wore his best suit. The only witnesses were Elena's younger brother Carlos and her best friend Maria from work. It wasn't the grand wedding Marcus's mother had always planned for him. There were no flowers, no orchestra, no reception for hundreds of guests. But as Marcus and Elena exchanged vows, he felt happier than he had ever been in his life. The newlyweds couldn't afford a honeymoon, so they spent their first night as husband and wife in Elena's small apartment. It was a tiny one-bedroom place with old furniture and peeling paint on the walls. The shower barely worked and the refrigerator made strange noises all night. But Marcus didn't care. He was with the woman he loved, and that was all that mattered. The reality of their situation hit them quickly. Marcus's salary as a doctor was good, but not nearly enough to maintain the lifestyle he was used to. His father had cut off all financial support, including access to the trust fund that Marcus had never really thought about before. For the first time in his life, Marcus had to budget for groceries and worry about paying bills. Elena tried to make him feel better about the small apartment and simple meals. She cooked with ingredients she bought carefully, making every dollar stretch. She mended his clothes when they got worn instead of throwing them away. She showed him how to find happiness in small things. A good meal together, a walk in the park, a movie at the discount theater. But Marcus could see the worry in Elena's eyes sometimes when she thought he wasn't looking. She had given up her dream of becoming a teacher because they needed her full-time income from the restaurant. She worked longer hours now, often coming home exhausted and sore from being on her feet all day. Marcus began to wonder if his father had been right about some things. Not about Elena being a gold digger. That was obviously false. But maybe he had been naive about how difficult it would be to suddenly live without money. Maybe he had made Elena's life harder instead of better by marrying her. These doubts grew stronger when Marcus learned that his father had been spreading rumors about his marriage throughout their social circle. William told everyone that his son had suffered a mental breakdown and been tricked into marrying a manipulative woman. Some of Marcus's colleagues at the hospital began treating him differently, whispering behind his back and excluding him from social events. The pressure was building from all sides, and Marcus wasn't sure how much more he could take. But every night when he came home to Elena's warm smile and loving embrace, he remembered why he had made his choice. She never complained about their struggles, never made him feel guilty for the wealth he had given up. Instead, she supported his decision to keep working as a doctor and encouraged him to stay true to his values. What Marcus didn't know was that his troubles were just beginning, and the real test of their marriage was about to unfold in ways he could never have imagined. 6 months into their marriage, Marcus and Elena were struggling more than ever. The bills kept piling up, and even with both of them working, money was always tight. Marcus had taken on extra shifts at the hospital, sometimes working 16-hour days just to make ends meet. Elena had picked up a second job cleaning offices at night after her restaurant shifts ended. They barely saw each other anymore. When Marcus came home exhausted from surgery, Elena was either at work or already asleep. When she returned from her cleaning job in the early morning hours, Marcus was getting ready to leave for the hospital. Their conversations became short and focused on practical matters, which bills needed to be paid, whose turn it was to buy groceries, whether they could afford to fix the leaking faucet. The stress was taking its toll on both of them. Marcus had lost weight and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Elena seemed smaller somehow, as if the constant work was wearing her down. But the worst part was watching Elena give up more and more of her dreams. She had stopped talking about becoming a teacher, stopped reading the education books she used to love, stopped believing that her life could be different. Marcus felt guilty every day. He wondered if Elena would have been happier if she had never met him. Maybe she could have found someone from her own world, someone who wouldn't have complicated her life with impossible family drama and financial pressure. One particularly difficult evening, Marcus came home to find Elena crying at their small kitchen table. Bills were spread out in front of her, and she was holding a red notice from their landlord. "They're raising the rent again," she said without looking up. $50 more per month. I don't know how we're going to manage it." Marcus sat down beside her and took her hand. It was rough from all the cleaning chemicals she used at her night job. "We'll figure it out," he said, though he had no idea how. "Maybe I should ask for more hours at the restaurant," Elena suggested. "You're already working yourself to death," Marcus protested. "There has to be another way." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "I could ask my family for help." This was the first time Elena had ever mentioned asking her family for money. In fact, she rarely talked about her family at all. Marcus knew she had a younger brother named Carlos, but Elena always changed the subject when he asked about her parents or her childhood. "I thought you said your family didn't have much money," Marcus said carefully. Elena looked uncomfortable. "They don't, but maybe they could help a little." That night Marcus couldn't sleep. Something about Elena's suggestion bothered him, though he couldn't put his finger on what it was. He had always assumed that Elena came from a family as poor as she was, but her offer to ask them for help suggested otherwise. The next day, Marcus decided to surprise Elena by picking her up from work. He had never been to the restaurant where she worked, and he thought it might be nice to walk home together for once. When he arrived at the address Elena had given him, he was confused. It was an upscale establishment in the business district, not the small diner he had imagined. Marcus walked inside and asked for Elena Rodriguez. The hostess looked confused. "Elena Rodriguez?" she repeated. "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone by that name working here." Marcus described Elena, thinking maybe the hostess was new and didn't know all the employees. But the woman shook her head. "No, I've been here for 3 years. There's definitely no one matching that description on our staff." Confused and worried, Marcus walked back outside. Maybe Elena had changed jobs and forgotten to tell him. But as he stood on the sidewalk, he realized he didn't know where Elena's second job was either. She had always been vague about the details, saying only that she cleaned offices downtown. When Elena came home that night, Marcus was waiting for her with questions. "How was work today?" he asked casually. "Fine," Elena replied, not meeting his eyes. "Just the usual." "I tried to surprise you by picking you up from the restaurant," Marcus said. "But they said they don't have anyone named Elena Rodriguez working there." Elena froze. For a moment, Marcus saw something flash across her face. Panic, maybe, or fear. Then she quickly recovered. "Oh, that's strange," she said. "Maybe you went to the wrong place. You know how many restaurants there are downtown." But Marcus knew he had gone to the right address. He had been careful to check. "Elena, what's going on? Where do you really work?" Elena turned away from him. "I work at a restaurant, like I told you. Maybe the person you talked to was new and didn't recognize my name." Marcus wanted to believe her, but something felt wrong. Elena was acting nervous in a way he had never seen before. She was avoiding his eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began paying more attention to the details of Elena's life. He noticed that she always left for work and came home at specific times. But she never smelled like food or cleaning chemicals the way someone would after working in a restaurant or cleaning offices. Her hands weren't as rough as they should have been from the kind of work she claimed to be doing. One evening, Marcus followed Elena when she left for what she said was her night cleaning job. He felt terrible about spying on his own wife, but he needed to understand what was happening. Elena walked several blocks from their apartment, then got into a taxi. Marcus managed to follow the taxi to an expensive hotel in the best part of the city. Marcus watched from across the street as Elena entered the hotel through the main entrance. Not a service entrance like a cleaning person would use. She was dressed nicely, too nicely for someone going to clean offices. After an hour, she came back out and took another taxi home. When Elena returned to their apartment, she was carrying cleaning supplies and acting tired, as if she had just finished a long shift. But Marcus knew she hadn't been cleaning anything. "How was work tonight?" Marcus asked, testing her. "Exhausting," Elena replied. "They had me doing extra floors tonight." Marcus felt sick. His wife was lying to him about something important, and he had no idea why. Was his father right about Elena after all? Was she somehow deceiving him about who she really was? But even as these thoughts troubled him, Marcus remembered all the genuine moments they had shared. Elena's love for him seemed real. Her dreams of becoming a teacher had seemed real. Her tears over their financial struggles had seemed real. If she was lying about her work, there had to be a reason that made sense. Marcus decided to give Elena a chance to tell him the truth. Maybe she was embarrassed about losing her jobs and was trying to find new ones without worrying him. Maybe she was doing something she wasn't proud of to make money and was afraid he would judge her. "Elena," Marcus said gently, sitting down beside her on their small couch, "I know something is bothering you. Whatever it is, you can tell me. We're married now. We're supposed to share everything, good and bad." Elena looked at him with those beautiful brown eyes that had first captured his heart. For a moment he thought she was going to confess whatever she was hiding, but then she looked away. "Nothing's bothering me," she said. "I'm just tired from work." Marcus felt a distance growing between them that had nothing to do with their busy schedules. His wife was keeping secrets from him and he didn't know what to do about it. He loved Elena more than ever, but he was starting to realize that he might not really know who she was. The truth came crashing down on Marcus in the most unexpected way. He was working late at the hospital when Dr. Patricia Chen, the head of the hospital board, approached him with a concerned expression. "Marcus, I need to speak with you privately," she said, gesturing toward her office. Marcus followed her, wondering if this was about his recent performance. He had been distracted lately, worried about Elena and their financial problems. Maybe he had made a mistake during surgery that he wasn't aware of. "Sit down," Dr. Chen said, closing the door behind them. "I've just received some very interesting information, and I think you need to know about it." She handed Marcus a thick manila envelope. "This was delivered to me today by a private investigator. It's about your wife." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What about my wife?" "Someone hired this investigator to look into Elena Rodriguez," Dr. Chen explained. "I suspect it was your father, given the timing and the thoroughness of the report." With trembling hands, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, documents, and a detailed report that made his head spin. The first photograph showed Elena getting out of a luxury car. The second showed her entering a mansion that made the Blackwood estate look modest. The third showed her having lunch with an older man in an expensive restaurant. But it was the documents that truly shocked Marcus. Elena's real name was Elena Vasquez Montenegro. She was the daughter of Ricardo Montenegro, one of the wealthiest men in South America. The Montenegro family owned mining operations, oil refineries, and real estate across 3 countries. Their net worth was estimated at over $2 billion. According to the investigator's report, Elena had been living in the city for 2 years under a false identity. She had never worked as a waitress. The small apartment where they lived was paid for by a trust fund that provided her with a monthly allowance of $50,000, more money than Marcus made in a year. Marcus stared at the documents in disbelief. His wife, the woman he had sacrificed everything for, was richer than he had ever been. She was richer than his own family. Everything she had told him about her life was a lie. "There's more," Dr. Chen said gently. The investigator found out why she was living under a false identity. Marcus read on, feeling sicker with every page. Elena had been engaged to marry a European businessman chosen by her father. It was an arranged marriage meant to combine 2 wealthy empires, just like the marriage Marcus's father had planned for him with Victoria Sterling. But Elena had run away from her family and their expectations, choosing to live as a poor person in order to escape her privileged life. The irony was devastating. Marcus had given up his wealth to marry a poor woman, only to discover that the poor woman was actually richer than he was. Elena had been living a lie, pretending to struggle financially while secretly having access to more money than most people could imagine. "Why would she do this?" Marcus whispered. "According to the report, she wanted to experience real life," Dr. Chen said. "She wanted to know what it was like to live without money and privilege. Apparently, she had been sheltered her entire life and wanted to understand how ordinary people lived." Marcus felt betrayed and confused. Had Elena's love for him been real? Or was he just part of her experiment in living like a poor person? Had she married him because she truly loved him? Or because marrying a doctor fit into her fantasy of being an ordinary woman? "There's something else you should know," Dr. Chen continued. "The investigator discovered that Elena's family has been looking for her. They hired private security firms to find her, but she's been very careful to stay hidden. However, her father recently learned about her marriage to you." Marcus looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means your wife's secret life is about to be exposed. Her family knows where she is now, and they're coming to bring her home." That evening, Marcus confronted Elena with the investigator's report. He spread the photographs and documents across their small kitchen table and watched as her face went pale. "Who are you?" Marcus asked quietly. Elena looked at the evidence of her deception and began to cry. But these weren't the tears of someone who had been caught in a lie. They were tears of relief, as if she had been carrying a heavy burden for too long. "My name is Elena Vasquez Montenegro," she said softly. "Everything else I told you was a lie." "Why?" Marcus demanded. "Why did you lie to me about everything?" Elena wiped her eyes and looked at him directly. "Because I wanted to know what it felt like to be loved for who I am, not what I own. My entire life, people have only cared about my family's money. Every man who ever showed interest in me was really interested in my trust fund. Every friend I made wanted something from me. So you decided to lie to me instead?" "I was going to tell you the truth," Elena said desperately. "But then I realized how much you hated your father's wealth and pressure. You were so proud of choosing love over money. How could I tell you that the woman you chose was actually richer than the life you had given up?" Marcus stared at his wife, trying to process everything. "The jobs you claimed to have?" "I volunteered at a community center, teaching English to immigrant families. That's where I learned about the struggles of working people. But I never actually worked for money because I didn't need to." "The financial problems we've been having? I've been secretly paying our bills with money from my trust fund," Elena admitted. "But I tried to make it seem like we were struggling so you wouldn't suspect anything. I thought if I could just maintain the illusion long enough, maybe eventually the truth wouldn't matter." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of Elena's deception. Every moment of their relationship had been built on lies. Every sacrifice he had made, every hardship they had supposedly endured together, had been fake. "Do you have any idea what you've put me through?" Marcus asked angrily. "I gave up my entire family for you. I've been working myself to death trying to support us. I've been feeling guilty every day for making your life harder, when all along you could have solved our problems with pocket change." "I know," Elena said, crying harder now. "I know how wrong it was. But Marcus, my feelings for you were never fake. I fell in love with you because you're good and kind and you care about helping people. You're the first person who ever loved me without knowing about my money. How can I believe anything you say?" Marcus stood up and paced around their small kitchen. "You've been lying to me since the day we met. How do I know your love is real when everything else about you is fake?" Before Elena could answer, there was a loud knock at the door. Marcus and Elena looked at each other in fear. They both knew that Elena's secret life was about to collide with reality in ways that would change everything forever. The knock at the door was not gentle. It was firm, authoritative, and repeated 3 times in quick succession. Marcus and Elena stood frozen in their small kitchen, the evidence of Elena's deception still scattered across the table between them. "Elena Vasquez Montenegro," a deep voice called from the hallway. "We know you're in there. Open the door." Elena's face went completely white. "It's my father's security team," she whispered. "He found me." Marcus felt a surge of anger and protectiveness at the same time. Despite everything Elena had lied about, she was still his wife, and no one was going to intimidate her in their home. "Stay behind me," Marcus said, moving toward the door. When he opened it, he found himself facing 3 men in expensive suits. They looked like bodyguards, but they carried themselves with the confidence of people used to getting what they wanted. Behind them stood an older man who could only be Elena's father. Ricardo Montenegro was tall and imposing, with silver hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had been giving orders his entire life. "Dr. Blackwood," Ricardo said, stepping past his security team. "I am Ricardo Montenegro. I believe you know my daughter." Marcus stood his ground in the doorway. "This is my home. You can't just force your way in here." Ricardo smiled, but it was not a warm expression. "I'm not forcing my way anywhere, Doctor. I'm simply here to collect my daughter and bring her home where she belongs." "I'm not going anywhere," Elena said, appearing beside Marcus despite his request that she stay back. "Papa, you can't make me come home. Can't I?" Ricardo looked around the tiny apartment with obvious disgust. "Look what you've reduced yourself to, mija. Living in poverty, married to a man who can't even provide for you properly. This foolishness has gone on long enough." "Marcus is a good man," Elena said firmly. "He's a doctor who saves lives. He's worth more than all your money. Ricardo laughed coldly. A good man. He married you for your money, just like every other man you've ever met. He doesn't know about my money, Elena protested. He knows now, Ricardo said, gesturing toward the investigator's report visible on their kitchen table. And look how well he's taking the news. Does he look like a man who's happy to discover his wife is wealthy, or does he look like a man who feels foolish for being deceived? Marcus felt the sting of truth in Ricardo's words. He was angry about Elena's deception, and part of him did feel foolish. But that didn't mean he had married her for money. I married Elena because I love her, Marcus said. I didn't know about her family's wealth and I don't care about it now. How convenient, Ricardo replied. But let me ask you something, Doctor. If you had known from the beginning that my daughter was worth billions of dollars, would you have pursued her? Or would you have assumed she was just another rich girl looking for entertainment? Marcus opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. The honest truth was that he probably would have avoided Elena if he had known she was wealthy. He had been attracted to her partly because she seemed genuine and unaffected by money. If he had known she was an heiress, he would have assumed she was like the other rich women in his social circle. I thought so, Ricardo said, reading Marcus's hesitation correctly. You fell in love with an illusion, Doctor. The woman you married doesn't really exist. That's not true, Elena said desperately. The person I am with Marcus is who I really am. It's the most honest I've ever been in my life. Honest? Ricardo's voice rose. You've been lying to this man about everything. Your name, your background, your work, your finances. You call that honest? Elena began to cry again. I lied about those things, but my feelings were honest. My love for Marcus is honest. Love built on deception is not love, Ricardo said firmly. It's manipulation. You manipulated this man into marrying you by pretending to be someone you're not. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the confrontation happening in his doorway. Everything Ricardo was saying made sense, but it also felt wrong. He had experienced Elena's love and it had felt real. But how could he trust his own judgment when Elena had lied about everything else? Elena, Ricardo continued, his voice becoming gentler. You've had your adventure. You've seen how the other half lives. But this fantasy has gone too far. You're my daughter, and you belong with your family. I belong with my husband, Elena said, though her voice was shaking. A husband who doesn't trust you anymore, Ricardo pointed out. Look at him, Mia. Look at how he's looking at you. Do you see love in his eyes or do you see hurt and betrayal? Elena turned to look at Marcus and he saw the hope die in her eyes when she saw his expression. He was trying to process everything, trying to figure out what was real and what was fake, but he knew his confusion and pain were visible on his face. Marcus, Elena whispered, please say something. Marcus wanted to say that he forgave her, that they could work through this together, that her love was worth more than her deception. But the words wouldn't come. He was too hurt, too confused, too overwhelmed by the magnitude of her lies. I need time to think, Marcus said finally. The hope completely left Elena's eyes. You don't trust me anymore. I don't know what to trust anymore, Marcus admitted. Everything I thought I knew about you was a lie. How am I supposed to trust anything now? Ricardo stepped forward. Elena, it's time to come home. Your engagement to Sebastian Villanova is still valid. He's willing to overlook this unfortunate episode if you return immediately. I'm married to Marcus, Elena said weakly. A marriage based on fraud can be annulled, Ricardo replied. We have the best lawyers in the world. This mistake can be corrected. Elena looked back and forth between her father and Marcus, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, please. Don't let him take me away. Fight for us, but Marcus just stood there silent. He loved Elena, but he didn't know who Elena really was anymore. How could he fight for a relationship when he wasn't even sure what he was fighting for? I can see that Dr. Blackwood needs time to process this situation, Ricardo said diplomatically. Elena, you will come with me now. If the doctor decides he wants to pursue this relationship despite everything he's learned, he knows how to find you. Elena realized that Marcus wasn't going to stop her father from taking her. She looked at her husband one last time, memorizing his face as if she might never see him again. I love you, she whispered. That was never a lie. Then she walked out the door with her father and his security team, leaving Marcus alone in their small apartment with nothing but the evidence of her deception scattered across their kitchen table. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stood in his empty apartment, wondering if the love he had felt was real or if he had been fooling himself all along. The woman he had sacrificed everything for was gone, and he wasn't sure if he should try to get her back or let her go forever. For 3 weeks, Marcus lived in a haze of confusion and pain. The small apartment felt enormous without Elena's presence. Every corner reminded him of moments they had shared, cooking dinner together at the tiny stove, watching movies on their old couch, falling asleep in each other's arms in their cramped bedroom. He threw himself into work, taking on every surgery and extra shift available. Colleagues noticed his dedication, but also his exhaustion. Dr. Chen checked on him regularly, concerned about his emotional state. Marcus appreciated her concern, but he couldn't explain to anyone how lost he felt. The investigator's report remained on his kitchen table for days. Marcus read it over and over, trying to understand Elena's motivations. Why would someone with unlimited wealth choose to live in poverty? Why would she work so hard to maintain such an elaborate lie? The more he thought about it, the more he realized how much effort Elena had put into becoming the person she presented to him. Late one evening, Marcus was walking home from the hospital when he passed the community center, where Elena had supposedly volunteered. On impulse, he went inside and asked about Elena Rodriguez. The woman at the front desk smiled immediately. Elena! Yes, she taught English classes here for almost 2 years. The students loved her. She was so patient and kind. Is she okay? We haven't seen her in a few weeks. Marcus felt a small spark of hope. She taught English here? Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, the woman confirmed. She was wonderful with the children especially. Some of those kids were really struggling, and Elena would stay late to help them with their homework. She never missed a class. As Marcus walked home, he realized this was the first true thing he had learned about Elena's secret life. She had genuinely cared about helping people just like she had claimed. Maybe not everything about her had been a lie. The next day, Marcus decided to visit Elena's family. He had found their address in the investigator's report, a massive estate outside the city that made his father's mansion look small. When Marcus arrived at the security gate, he was surprised to be let in immediately. Apparently, they had been expecting him. Ricardo Montenegro received Marcus in a study that was larger than most people's entire homes. The older man looked tired, and Marcus noticed that he seemed less intimidating than he had in the cramped apartment. Dr. Blackwood, Ricardo said, gesturing for Marcus to sit down. I wondered when you would come. I want to see Elena, Marcus said directly. She's here, but she's not well, Ricardo replied. She's been in her room for 3 weeks, barely eating, refusing to see anyone. She keeps asking if you've called. Marcus felt a pang of guilt. I needed time to think. And what have you concluded? Marcus took a deep breath. I've concluded that your daughter lied to me about many things, but I don't think she lied about loving me. Ricardo studied Marcus carefully. What makes you so certain? Because maintaining the lie she was living would have been exhausting, Marcus explained. She had to be careful about every detail, every conversation, every moment we spent together. No one would go through that much effort just to manipulate someone. She did it because she wanted to be loved for who she really was, not what she owned. And who is she really? Ricardo asked. Marcus thought about this question. She's someone who cares about other people. She's someone who wanted to understand how the world works for people who aren't wealthy. She's someone who was brave enough to give up luxury to find real love. She's someone who made mistakes but had good intentions. Ricardo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You're not what I expected, Dr. Blackwood. What did you expect? I expected you to be either a gold digger who would demand money to walk away, or a naive romantic who would forgive Elena without really understanding what she did wrong. But you seem to be neither. Marcus leaned forward. What Elena did was wrong. Lying to someone you love is always wrong. But I understand why she did it. And I think we can work through it if she's willing to be completely honest with me from now on. Are you prepared for what being married to Elena really means? Ricardo asked seriously. There will be bodyguards, publicity, business obligations. Your privacy will be gone. People will scrutinize everything you do, looking for evidence that you married her for money. Are you ready for that life? Marcus had been thinking about this for weeks. I became a doctor because I wanted to help people. If being married to Elena means I have access to resources that could help even more people, then maybe this is how I'm meant to use my life. Ricardo smiled for the first time since Marcus had met him. You might be worthy of my daughter after all. Can I see her? She's in the garden, Ricardo said. But Dr. Blackwood, if you're going to break her heart again, please do it quickly. She's suffered enough. Marcus found Elena sitting by a fountain in the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. She looked small and fragile among the elaborate flowers and sculptures. When she saw him approaching, she stood up quickly, hope and fear warring in her expression. Marcus, she whispered. You came? I came, he confirmed, stopping a few feet away from her. We need to talk. Elena nodded, wrapping her arms around herself as if she was cold despite the warm day. What you did was wrong, Marcus began. Lying to me about who you were, letting me believe we were struggling financially, watching me work myself to exhaustion while you secretly had millions of dollars, all of that was wrong. Elena began to cry. I know, I'm so sorry. But I understand why you did it, Marcus continued. And I believe that your feelings for me were real. Elena looked up at him with surprise. I've been thinking about everything we shared together, Marcus said. The way you listened when I talked about my work, the way you encouraged me to follow my dreams, the way you cried when you thought about children who couldn't afford good educations. Those reactions were real. You can't fake that kind of compassion. They were real, Elena said desperately. Everything I felt for you was real. Marcus stepped closer to her. I have conditions if we're going to make this work. Anything, Elena said immediately. No more lies. Ever. About anything. Even small things, I promise. We're going to use your family's resources to do good in the world. I want to build free clinics, fund scholarships, support medical research. If I'm going to be married to wealth, then that wealth is going to help people. Elena smiled through her tears. Yes, I want that too. And we're going to live modestly. I don't want a mansion or servants or any of that. I want us to remember what it's like for people who don't have money. Okay, Elena agreed. Marcus reached out and took her hands. And Elena, if you ever feel like you can't tell me something, you have to tell me anyway. No more protecting me from the truth. I will, Elena promised. Marcus, does this mean you forgive me? Marcus pulled her into his arms. It means I love you enough to try again. But it's going to take time to rebuild the trust between us. Elena held him tightly. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that my love for you is real. As they stood together in the beautiful garden, Marcus realized that their story had been unthinkable from the beginning. A rich doctor who gave up everything for a poor waitress only to discover that the poor waitress was richer than he had ever been. But maybe the most unthinkable thing of all was that real love could survive even the biggest lies. If both people were willing to work for it. 6 months later, Marcus and Elena renewed their vows in a simple ceremony at the community center where Elena had taught English. The students she had helped were their witnesses. After the ceremony, they announced the establishment of the Blackwood Montenegro Foundation, dedicated to providing free medical care and education to underserved communities. Marcus never reconciled with his father, but he found that he didn't need his family's approval anymore. He had built something better, a marriage based on truth, a purpose that gave meaning to wealth, and a love that had survived the ultimate test. The doctor had married a poor girl to defy his father, only to discover she wasn't poor at all. But what happened next wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a partnership that would change thousands of lives and prove that love, when it's real, can overcome any deception.